Hello, everybody. Today is June 26, 2024, and hopefully you can see some sort of view without the sun blaring in your eyes. I am going to re record, let people listen to what I have here that I had sent to my friend Lisa to fill her in on where I've been, what's going on, because I'm now touching bases with more people again. And I have sent this to a few people. So if you received messages from me today that are explaining what I had sent to my friend Lisa, then this will be a repeat plus whatever else he wants to say at the end of it. But he keeps telling me, I need you to explain this process to people because very much like your friend Tracy said, essentially, I think a lot of people, I think this is a warning to a lot of people about what Abba's going to be doing in their life or what he has been doing in their life or is doing to recover people because they can sense it now. I mean, at least the people that are in my circle can sense it now. Like, I think that I might be in this boat somehow because I don't feel in touch with deep parts of who I am. There's just a knowingness about that. So, what I'm going to do, and it's going to sound, you're going to hear a timer for my food going off, my wild rice I was cooking at one point, and so it's very at home in this recording, but it's very going to be very beneficial, I think, for people to understand a few things. This process more of saving a soul and recovering a soul, and just how far we gotten away from that in religion, instead of following Yeshua and what he's doing and where his heart mission is. Because I told him the other day, I said, listen, I don't necessarily want to know where your mind is, what your agenda is for um, political things or nations, established nations and things like that. I want to know what your heart mission is in the earth because that's where I am. And he said, recovering souls, it's always going to be recovering souls. And so the process that I'm in is that. And at the same time, there's been some pivotal things that have happened in the last 3 weeks to a month, and so this will be recapping that for people to understand what has been found and discovered in that time period pertaining to me, but also the depth of who he is and what he's really doing behind the scenes. And I'm not talking about, like I said, these things that seem, when we really boil things down to what is in the most important thing in this world, it'll always be saving the people. So when we get off that and on any other tangent and off that topic, we're off mission. And we need to regroup quickly. So anytime that you'll ever hear me bring forth something that he wants to talk about in judgment or something like that, or earthquakes, or this, that, or the other that's going to be coming in, you'll see us turn right back around and get back on point and on mission. So a warning's just a warning. It's a herald. Hey, this is coming. Or listen up. And then you go right back to Father's business. And he said, we've gotten far from his business. And he said, you want to know what my business is? I'm in the business of saving souls. That has been my entire mission with this fallen realm. And so this is going to catch us up on what exactly he's doing. And he's painstakingly showing me that I wanted to know his heart mission. And the beauty is that he has one for my soul. He has a mission to recover my soul. So not only am I going to be able to hear what his heart mission is, I'm experiencing his heart mission. And he said, these are the ones that I'll be able to use for the very same mission. So if you want to know how to be really close to God, like what part of ministry would be the closest with God, it will always be the same thing. It'll be first you get really close to him. You hear him, you follow him, you see him, you look into the depths of who his soul is, his person, his spirit, the deepest parts of who he is. You do that with him, and then he's going to stare back into you and he's going to uncover and expose every little part of you, and he's going to recover anything that is far from him, anything estranged from him. He's going to save you. And when he does that, then you will have experienced hell and heaven. Then you can bring the kingdom to the people, he said. So, with that, I'm going to go forward and play these messages. I am outside. If you hear the air conditioner, I'm really sorry. I'm going to try to hold this other phone very close to the microphone. And again, these are recordings to a friend of mine. So I think for the most part, I don't mention, other than my friend Lisa's name or something, here or there. But he's asking me to just play them and then anything else that he wants to say at the end. It's funny because I was crying to him earlier about people that are not, things are not the same between us, and you are one of them. And I don't mean, please hear me out, I don't mean it like in a super bad way, but it's just not the same as it once was. But neither am I. And that's what I was telling him, is that in a lot of ways, like I was telling Crystal, in a lot of ways, and I'll give you a little backstory to my day as to why I'm saying this about things not being the same. But I said to Crystal, I don't like, even, I know it's the maturation process. I said, but I don't really like calling it immature and mature anymore, because as soon as someone hears immature, it can be a trigger for a lot of people. I mean, if you grew up like me, a lot of, someone using the wrong word can be a trigger. And it's not the person saying it or even what they mean, it's just a trigger. Okay. So I said, I don't really like dealing with that word anymore. I mean, it doesn't really fit very well with what I've found Abba doing in people's lives right now, like my own, where he is recovering me. I said, what I have found about Abba growing us up, like recovering us and maturing us, is that it's less about immature and mature, and it's more about, you were buried, man. You were lost. And I have dug you up from the grave and found you, and I'm cleaning you up, and I'm polishing you, and you're so precious to me. I'm going to be putting you on the shelf where you can be seen and heard all the time. That is what I am finding Abba has me in this process of. And to me, that goes far beyond mature and immature. It goes into, you were lost and now you're found, and not only are you found, but you're cherished. I ain't taking my eye off you. And in fact, yes, he knew where we were all along. He could see us even buried under all of this. But he's recovering us. He's on recon search and rescue. And it's to rescue who we really are. And I was going over, see, all the people in my family are gone for this whole week. Tori just happened to be dog sitting until Sunday. My parents went up north Monday, and they're usually gone for almost a week before they even pop back in to check on the gardens and whatnot. So I've been spending all my days, it's what, Wednesday, alone with God. And we're talking a lot. In fact, he is talking a lot, which is actually better for me, because when I'm really not doing well, I'm doing all the talking. It's like I can't handle anything. Like don't put anything else in, like a trauma response. And right now, he's doing a lot of talking, and those things are difficult and hard, like emotionally and psychologically, to face. He's digging me up from the grave. I mean, he's finding me in the shadow of the valley, the valley of the shadow of death. He's finding me in there, and he is uncovering me. He's unburying me. He's resurrecting the real me. So mature and immature doesn't even fit that. There's not enough depth in that to describe the process of God's love rescuing a human, God rescuing a person in this world. And when I said to him, it's like my relationships have changed, I don't just mean like you, I mean a lot of people, because my life changed. My life changed in the last month, and it has been a roller coaster. And I have witnessed, like almost as if I'm separate from myself, witnessing what's happening, but also deeply it's happening to me. He said, because you've been traumatized for so long, even in that, there was a split to be able to handle what he's doing in my life. But I have to believe that I'm at that level now where he knows I can handle doing this with him. And so I've been watching this dysfunctional part of me, the survival mode, bad, patterned, survival mode operations that have taken place, all of them coming to the surface, to see them and acknowledge them. And that's been a roller coaster ride. Like I saw myself doing destructive behaviors I haven't done in a long time, because everything and the garbage all came to the surface at the same time. I mean, like the real me, but the problems with the real me attached to and functioned through and as, to cope in what I call no man's land, not alive or dead, somewhere as a zombie, operation, just just disassociative. And so it's been a roller coaster ride. Like the month of June has been one of the hardest months I've ever been through. And I think it probably started in May too. But I mean, there'll be one day where I can recognize myself and God a little bit. I really mean that. I can recognize us. And then there's another day where I will find myself in the pits of hell again. And he's there with me. And that's the most beautiful part, is that he's never, I mean, he's literally sitting smack in front of my face, you know, like on the floor, like inches from me, keeping himself in a humble, low position as a non-threat, entity toward me. And I've been getting to know him on that level. And so when I say, I'm going to leave another message, so these don't get all weird when I send them. So when I say that my relationships changed, it's because I changed. And I mean for bad and good. I just mean like in general, like just like a huge difference with this month, where the functional part of me was received by people, and I was operating a certain way prior to this whole process. I was operating in everything that I knew to do, but underneath the surface was like there was like a volcano churning under there. But at the surface conscious level of me, I was counseling what I was supposed to counsel, ministering what I was supposed to minister, putting videos together with what I was doing, digging into scripture with him. But underneath there was this desperation that I could feel, and this frustration that I could feel, that everything seemed to be pointless that I was doing, because I wasn't doing well underneath, and I could sense this stuff, and I could sense the battle. And it was just time for these things to come up and to be dealt with, and with him. And so I had to pull away from everyone, and even in that, it felt like total upheaval and chaos, like God took my life and dumped it upside down. And I didn't know what to do with that, because on one hand, I didn't want to abandon people because I've been abandoned. But on the other hand, I wasn't abandoning them without I mean, like, I wasn't abandoning them. Number one, I'm like, I need help and I got to get it from him. And I'm sorry, I'm not well. So that's not abandonment. That's just straight up the facts. But the other part of me knowing that I cannot, for their safety and mine, remain in contact with people the way that I was. I can't, because I don't recognize myself or God or my life right now at all, because he had to go in and he had to rescue in the fringes of my soul, go to the edges of my soul where all these parts of me were hiding, very estranged from him, and shake the roost. Tribulation is what I've been going through, because like when you sift something, it has to all come to the surface. You know what I'm saying? Like all the dross and the debris has to be dealt with, and somewhere underneath there is a precious item he's recovering, which is me.
I wanted to stop this for a moment because he said tribulation. You're in the great tribulation. Me, in my soul. Now, we all think of that as out there in the world, and there will be worldly tribulation and great tribulation, all that. But he said, I want them to understand this is great tribulation of the soul. My children will go through this in the recovery process right now with me. And so when the worldly tribulation comes, you'll have already gone through all this. So I want to give encouragement to anybody who is feeling like they've been buried alive, because he said that's what we're going to call this video, is buried alive. When God comes to rescue you from being buried alive. And when he comes to rescue you from hell, he said most people just think of hell as an end result place. He said you literally can be trapped in hell now, and we'll get there with this. But he said, I want you to understand that this is great tribulation. I am taking her through great tribulation to recover her soul, because it's very precious to me. And this is what he is going to, and has been, and will be doing with other people. And I am pioneering with him in this. Not that others haven't gone before me, don't get me wrong, in every generation people have, but to whom he's going to call me to, this is going to be a very, very detailed process. Not only is he going to do this and rescue my soul, he's going to teach me how he does that, very methodically and slowly, as we go through this, in order to bring this to the other people. I keep getting messages now from people going, there's something your videos are doing that's triggering things inside of me to make me understand and recognize that I have estranged parts because I can feel this disconnect and this void. And I had said to him the other day, I find it interesting that these videos have less views on them than it does like judgment, rapture, and all these other things. And he said, yeah, that's part of the problem is that people are not really concentrating on the most important things that are going on here in this world. This whole realm is about being in hell or heaven, being with the devil or with God. It's all about the false identity or the real identity, and we get waylaid and sidetracked in all kinds of distractions, including, gold dust falling from the raptors, angel visitations. What is heaven like? What do people do in heaven? He said those are all distractions. The truth is, there's only one mission in this realm, and it's that you're in heaven and hell in this realm all at the same time. You have good and you have evil presented to you. You have destruction and you have resurrection and rebuilding, and it's all options. And I need everybody to focus on what the great mission is here. The great mission is recovering and saving souls out of hell and bringing them into the kingdom. That's why my son came and testified for 40 days afterwards of his resurrection to testify of the kingdom of God and how God, the king and the kingdom. So that's what's most important here, Janet, is bringing the king to the lost and buried alive people to rescue them and resurrect them. And anything else is off mission and off point. And I'm going to go back into this now. But the whole point was I am in great tribulation. I'm in the great tribulation now. It isn't going to matter what happens when bombs drop and famine happens. If I can trust God through this process and come out of hiding and being buried alive and being trapped in hell, quite literally, if He can rescue me from hell, He can get me through anything in this world.
And that precious item threw everything at him. I mean, every cuss word and whatever was buried with
This
her,
was me.
it all came up with her because it's not like it was a put on. She wasn't coming up with all of this. It was what was buried with her. And he said, as much as I have to save her, we also have to purge and clean the house. So all this has to come up and come out. And I need you to give it to me on the altar. And I was lambasting him. I mean, it was just, and he's sitting at my feet and he is smiling.
I paused it again because when I say I was lambasting him, I mean whatever this little girl needed to say that she had never been able to voice. And think about a little child that has heard cuss words and seen wickedness done to her and shown to her and around her. She's got a lot of garbage in there. And he said it's very important for her to be able to get this all out. You got to purge it all out because I have no room to put myself in there. All this is still trapped inside. Like, sure, she's not well and she's not mended and whole, but she comes with all the garbage she had toting with her. I need it all laid out on the altar, which means you got to get this all out. You got to speak it all to me because then it's going to clean it out. And all those areas, then I'll be able to go in and fill with me and my goods and the truth and be able to recover and mend. So this all has to be purged out.
With all of this, what I call violent, vile garbage coming out at him, and fears and confusion and anger about injustice and maltreatment in this world, and yada yada, and where were you, all that kind of stuff, right? And he's just smiling because he said, it's not, he said, you don't understand. I'm your father, and I created you, and I made you, and I love you, and I want you recovered. What doesn't matter is what you're doing and saying to me. That does not matter. And I'm like, whoa, 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 what matters? Why are you smiling? Why are you okay with this while all this is going on? And what he said was, you're talking to me. Like, this part of you is allowing me to sit in front of your feet now and be in a non-threatening position below you, exalting you to be heard and seen.
I'm pausing it again because I actually had someone say to me recently in the last day, I didn't know that we could talk to God like that. And what she meant was because I said, I've been cussing. I mean, this little girl part of me has been cussing and using foul language while the other part of me is horrified and yet sitting here going, no, get it out, say it. It's been a roller coaster ride. And I said, that's the problem. Religion will tell you you have to be super controlled with God and you can't. And yet he knows that's all in there. He already knows it. He's already heard it. He's already seen it. He knows it's in there. And we're the ones, because when we won't admit something, if you won't admit it, if you won't let it out,
If you will not go through that purging process, you're pushing it down. It's still there. It's still real. It's still there. So you got to not be embarrassed to be able to say whatever this voice has to say to God. Where were you? I'm angry at you, and I don't like you, and I don't trust you. Whatever it is, it has to come out, because He said I can't deal with inauthenticity. I have to deal with genuine, raw, and honest. It's the only way to purge these things out. I already know it's there. You need to know it's there. And if you know it's there, why are you afraid to show it to me? I've already seen it. Why are you afraid to say it? I've already heard it. And I'm still here coaxing you to come out and get rid of the garbage so we can fill it with what's good and what's proper and what's holy and what's life-giving. So it's really important for us to know that you can't just act like something's not in you if it's in you. You can't act like you're whole if you're broken. I mean, not to God, not privately, not in any way, shape, or form can we deny these things or push them down. And on one instance, I was telling him something's not right. I see these things inside when I'm communing with you, and they were estranged parts of me that absolutely did not know him in any way, shape, or form, did not like him, did not trust him, and would mock the truth when it was spoken. These are all signs and symptoms that there are parts of us that are not in agreement with the other parts of us who are trusting Him and wanting Him to come into our lives and save us in all these ways, shapes, and forms. And so there was all these symptoms all along. And to Him, that's why He found it an immense victory to Him that this little girl was just speaking to Him and looking at Him, period. It didn't matter what was coming out of her mouth. It didn't matter the look on her face or the tone in her voice. He's way bigger than that anyway. And He just sat there absolutely grinning and smiling to her because she was what was important, not what she was presenting. And you are what is important, not what you're going to have to say to him or bring up to the surface. That's all got to come out anyway so it can be filled with love and light and God and His attributes. But we'll keep going. That was what meant everything to him. And in this process, I'm redis those parts of me are rediscovering who He is and learning to be very brave and attempt to let go around Him, to, we could call it trust Him, but to relax. Like, because I couldn't relax around anybody, even God. I'm learning that. And so I feel like a different person because He said the functional part of you understood me to the level that you did and knew me to the level that you did, but this part of you didn't know me at all, like in any way, shape, or form, trust me, would be around me, agreed with me, none of that. Angry about everything, and I want to hear everything she has to say. I want her to be seen and heard because she's been buried. And I was talking to Crystal earlier today, my friend Crystal, and I said, so I see it as more of a search and rescue to recover us from being buried alive. That's different than mature and immature. It goes far beyond the depths of that definition. And it's a process where I am learning who He made me to be painstakingly, slowly, as He uncovers me from being buried in hell. It's so when I say that my relationships changed, they ought to have, because the me that was there before, the me that spoke with everyone a month ago, is not the me that's here now. The amount of growth and recovery that's taking place is making me a different person. It is, because it has to, he just said, because there was parts of you that were not involved and now they are. And so I said to him, I miss like talking with Lisa the way that I used to. I miss doing that with, and I named like all these other people. But at the same time, I know that what I'm going through, I have to go through, and that I cannot go through it with, I have to go through this alone with God to a certain degree, really in a lockdown mode, because I won't survive any other way. I'm going to send another message. And meaning that if I have a whole bunch of other people involved in my life in any way, even just in talking, and there's still people saying, I got a word from you from Abba, and it pains me to read them sometimes. If it's literally from Abba and it's current right now, I can handle it. But if it's from Abba about like future stuff, I don't want to hear it because my little girl can only handle so much right now. Like, this is where he's gonna take you. This is what he's gonna do. I've about had it with gonna and soon. And so the people that are spot on for the moment with what he's saying, I can handle, and I can handle in little bits of it. But for the most part, here's the reason, because all I've done my whole life is listen to other people, everybody, right? But I need to listen to Dad. I need Dad. I don't need other people more than I need Dad, and I don't need to learn about myself from other people more than I need to learn about it from Dad internally as he and I go through my identity. So I am in contact with people in more of a normal way now. Like, I can stay in contact with you in more of a normal way now, but I still feel very um like the seas are still being calmed inside of me. And but I can see a little more clearly when I look around. And the compassion that I have for a lost soul and understanding what a lost soul is, and it doesn't mean the whole soul, but it can mean fragments and parts, okay? Or let's call it just broken apart, fractured, right? Needing to be healed and, if you will, casted, like put a cast on and heal these fractures and mend us, right? The compassion that I've learned for the broken soul is incredible. And so he said to me, how can I ever walk out with my children what they've never experienced? To go in and save someone from those areas when they've never been in those areas. So every suffering you've ever been through can be used. Like, on the heels of me being rescued and saved and mended back together will be this. And he keeps talking to me about that. You have no idea the incredible ministry that I'm going to do with you, because all I talk to him about is like, God, I want to save souls with you. God, I want to save souls. I want to be like you in that. I mean, I want to recover them in all these different ways that I see you doing with me. I'm watching him do it, and I'm attracted to that desire to want to see people come into wholeness with him. You know what I'm saying? And what he's showing me is it's a tragedy, all these things that have happened to people like you, where you have been lost in the recesses of a soul for so long, hiding at the fringes. But he's like, in every way that I can recover you and heal you, our relationship in this, you give them hope and you learn how I save a soul. And we can bring that to them. You'll be ambassador bringing me to them. We can walk through and we can swim through these people's souls. I'll show you what's going on. And so he's speaking to me about all these works he wants to do through me and with me, to partner in life to do it. And I think it's beautiful. But I'm not the same person I was a month ago. I couldn't be. There's no way I could be the same person that I was a month ago. And I shouldn't be. And so really it's going to be people rediscovering Janet. As I rediscover me, every one of you is going to know me in a little bit of a different way now, because I will be that much more complete and recovered these parts of me that have in-depth ability to relate to hell and the consequences of when we bring hell to someone else instead of heaven and God, and compassion, and an absolute force of wanting to fight for the recovery and the justice for souls. I have much more intimacy with that, for one, and realizing that so much of me has been repressed, that with the flip side of that, so much of me will now have freedom and expression, should make me a different person. Because if, let's say, my innocence was hidden along with these parts that were estranged, or joy, or the ability to receive safety, security, provision, or support, or love, or whatever from anyone, because I was in hiding. If all those parts were in hiding, well, good God, no wonder I couldn't People are like, just do this, just be this, just say yes, just receive his love. And he's like, she can't. She literally doesn't have that part. She's not in touch with that part of her anymore, the part that receives love. Like, it's gone. She cannot do that. Like, that's what he's been showing me. And so I should be a different person on the other side of this, because there are parts of me that are going to be breathed back to life. And I will have the hardware to do these things where I didn't have any of this knowledge before. I knew what his goal was. I knew what he was doing. I knew that he wanted to do that and that he was using me in these different ways. But there was this disconnect with a lot of people where it's like, it doesn't matter how long I've said these things, they're not being recovered. And I'm seeing that. Why is that? How is that? How can that be? I know that somewhere inside of them, they're not wanting to resist you, but somewhere inside of them they are. So I don't, it's this dichotomy of this two different things going on inside the human soul. I'm going to leave another message. So that this dichotomy, this war is going on. So we often, like, when I look at religion now, like when I look at what the body of Christ is doing in churches, I'm like, we are so far from understanding what spiritual warfare is. Spiritual warfare, the biggest that I can tell you, sure, is there entities out there? Sure, did they latch on and they puppet us? And sure, but really, it's the spiritual warfare is between our real self and the false identity, and it's because the real us, it will be in touch with God. It always has been, but the false identity that many of us have come to understand for so long, thinking it's us, is actually in opposition to God. And so
I wanted to stop there because he showed me a chess game earlier and he said most people picture a chess game of God between the devil, over human souls or something. He said it's not the truth. He said the truth is it's me against the false identity of the person. The devil will puppet that and influence that, but that's his nature. And I'll go into that about what happened to the one we call Satan, or the fallen one with no name now. Um, but it's truly God battling against us in the soul, but against the false identity, because our true identity is in alignment with Him. Our true identity looks like Him. Our true identity operates like Him and supports Him, but the false identity does not. And so it's the real spiritual warfare is us wearing a mask and wearing a false identity, battling against God in His true identity and against our true identity. That's the truth of spiritual warfare in this realm, and any of the entities out there can only latch on if we're living out of inauthenticity, meaning our real identity. So, of course, God's going to want to come in with his sword drawn and fire in his eyes and recover us from the false identity, the false belief systems, from the hiding, from the estrangement from him. He's going to want to go into hell with his sword drawn and get you back. He's going to want to get you uncovered, and where you've been buried alive. He's going to want to uncover you, expose all this, bring it out into the open, purge you, sift you, clean you. He said, I'm going to bring you fully through the fire. And as he does that and recovers us, then we are whole and mended in Christ. And so every single part of me, this has been weeks. We're talking 3 weeks to 4 weeks to like a month plus. I don't even know at this point of him first of all, bringing it up to me, saying, "Hey, this issue is going on. This issue is very, very real. That you have these estranged parts of you." And with this estrangement and these parts of you that are not in agreement with me, you're not even in touch with yourself. You don't even know that these parts existed anymore. You've been wondering why you can't connect to love, why you don't, why this, why that, right? Why you struggle with this? Why are you seeing this? Why are you feeling that inside? It's because all these parts hold all those parts, and they are not with me. They're against me still, because they had to go into hiding and protect. But they don't have to do that now. And it took him the longest time to coax me out. And so these parts of me are trapped in a false identity. And I'll go into that a little further, I think, in this recording. If not, then we'll pick up there. Father, remind me to speak about putting on that false identity to survive.
So the enemy will latch onto the false identity, because the enemy, the originator of all that, received a false identity, didn't know who he was, didn't know what he meant to God, and aligned with seeing God in an ill light and all that other jazz. And so it's really this dichotomy. The war is between the real self that God made us to be and the false identity. And that's why I don't like immature and mature. I like recovered or unrecovered, buried or been found and being cleaned up and restored. And so I see a different me in the process coming out. I mean, I see me, real me, being able to like peek out around the edges now, and that little girl, she's holding what we would call receive God's love in her hand. She holds the power of that. And if he can recover her and she can learn in any way, shape, or form that he comes through and he is as faithful as he says he is, then Janet will be able to receive his love and his provision and all of that. He's on a mission to recover us in a deep, profound way like that. And I'm starting to see that people don't have the hardware. They don't have that part of them to do a lot of this work. And I'm still in the process of figuring out with him, watching him do the process so that I know how to approach other people, because it has been one hell of an experience, and I mean that literally. He said, I literally have had to go into hell to get you. You guys hear these things where the enemy has been able to capture a part of my people and keep them imprisoned in hell, and he goes, I mean literally, like literally in the spirit. And so there's a lot of these places where God has had to go and traverse this hell landscape inside the soul to even get in front of our fractured parts, to even present himself in any way, shape, or form, and then coax these parts out to be able to come out and trust him enough to, you don't have to come near me, but just tell me all the stuff you wanted someone to hear that they never heard, and I'll listen to you, and I will not judge you in any way, shape, or form. I won't even move. I won't move a muscle, and you can be safe with me. Just for them to come out enough and peek around a corner enough to have a conversation with him about that is incredibly beneficial and positive to him. And it's this process of getting her, once he got her, and it's taken weeks now, but once he got me to be able to sit on a let's say a couch or a chair, and him sit at the feet of me, and me be able to be within inches of him, even if I'm screaming and cussing at him or whatever's going on, that is progress. And she's being seen and heard and elevated to do so, like she's been made important. And at one point that broke me, and I made it through one day where I said, I have nothing else to fight you with. Meaning I couldn't come up with anything else to throw at him. It doesn't mean everything was resolved, and he said, yes, love defeated you today. Light defeated darkness. And that was pivotal for me in this past week. And then the next day was one of the hardest days I've ever had. I mean, so it's been back and forth in this process, but he's recovering me, the real me. And I would think that if the real me's been buried for a long time, she's not used to the light, and the light shines on her, and it's like being an albino stuck in a cave your whole life. It feels painful and exposed like a raw nerve. I am now exposed by the light, right? And me, to him, that's cool. I should be exposed. But to me, who has hidden in darkness for so long, feeling safe and in affiliation with it, agreeing with what darkness said about me and all that, this is the opposite of that, and this feels unfamiliar, and it can be scary, and it can be extremely painfully perceived. And so my whole point is that my relationships with people feel different, and they should, because even my relationship with me feels different. I see people differently. I see myself differently. I see areas why I participated in chat groups a lot, and distractions a lot, videos a lot. I am now bored with most people's videos because it has nothing to do with my father. It has to do with ministry and miracles and programs and conferences, and it has nothing to do with my father or saving their souls in detail. And right now, my father has shown me how much he is on a mission to recover his children, and the depths of what that is. And it is invaluable information to me, and an invaluable experience to me. And I absolutely hate it and love it all at the same time. And excuse me, there's a timer going off for my food, but so I'm like loving and hating the experience that's going on right now, because what's actually happening is that I'm going through the uncomfortable process of being reformed and rediscovered but learning so much and being rediscovered. So it's a roller coaster ride, but it's going to be a different me on the other side of it. Do you know what I'm saying? And a deep, deep, profound compassion for other people's souls, and how they're not in touch with themselves. And I can see it in some people. I'm like, they don't know who they are. Like literally, we can see that sometimes in others, but like, you don't know what to do about it. He's showing me what he does about it, and that is invaluable to me.
Those were the recorded messages that I'd left, and there were two other things that while I was waiting for those messages to go through and finish, many people, one of those things is that many people think that, well, I wasn't raped, well, I wasn't abandoned, I wasn't an orphan without parents, I wasn't physically, sexually, whatever, had this, that, or that. He said they often will discount the trauma and the behavior patterns that develop from going through trauma because they think it's not big T trauma, like a capital trauma, like a, and he said what they dismiss is all the little moments that happened over and over by unhealed, unwhole, um, ungodly, meaning not led by God, people that treated us in the ways that they did, that approached us in the ways that they did, that saw us through the lens that they saw us through, and behaved the way that they do. That's ritualistic, meaning habitual over and over again. Satanic, meaning opposite of God, ungodly, trauma that we undertook. So mental abuse fits that, verbal abuse fits that, emotional abuse fits that. And many of us didn't have those big T traumas like he's talking about, but we were belittled on and abased in our identities, in our true person, core person, over and over again by adults as children or adolescents, etc., growing up, and wondered why we always seem to be in the same types of relationships with men or women. Why do I find myself falling into the same category with the same issue? Because there are coping mechanisms and behaviors that were put into play in us by survival mode that we had to go through that have patterned us more than he said rape one time you can get over that easier than you can ritualistic abuse, meaning that on a consistent basis as a child every single day you encountered this over again, and you have to disassociate and break away from your true identity to survive. And so the other point he wanted me to bring up was we come up with these coping mechanisms which often can be, well, I'm going to get all straight A's now. I'm going to be performance based. I am going to do everything the way that they say that I need to do things. I'm going to be black and white. I'm not going to infraction things because that's how you're safe. You learn that if you become these things and perform in this way, you'll be safe, you'll be received, you'll be seen, you'll be appreciated. They'll dote on you or whatever it is. And so then you lose track of who you were created to be originally, and you become the false identity. So you become an overachiever, a workaholic. You become somebody who's a chameleon who bends to the whims of everyone else to try and be a peace maker or whatever, in every situation by bending to the situation instead of having the situations bend to the truth of love and God's presence and standing firmly against injustices, etc., and so on. We become all of this other identity that we think is what will be received and loved by others, just because you, at a core of who we are, we want to be received. Every human being wants to be received and appreciated and loved and seen and heard. And when you are a child and you can't escape who you are being raised by and the environment you're being raised in and the behaviors that are being thrown at you, you will disassociate in some way, shape, or form. That doesn't mean you'll just have like this schizophrenic break. I don't mean that. Or split personalities to the T of the definition in the DSM for mental health. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you will reattribute new behaviors and new patterns of function into yourself that God would have never placed on you, like perfectionism, workaholic,
to the extent of becoming these type A personality, or even type B, which is like just bend and be a chameleon, whatever they want. That's what you need to do because that's what's safe and you'll be received that way. And people will like you because you'll become all things to all men. He's like, that's not what that means at all. All things to all men means you can relate, and you have got to go through some stuff with God to be able to relate to them and meet them at the place that they are, but you don't become that. If they're dysfunctional, you don't become dysfunctional just to relate to them. You say, I've been there. I know what that's like. I have experienced that. Okay. But the whole point is that because of these traumas, what people perceive as, well, it's just a little thing. I mean, they treated me harshly. They were emotionally or verbally abusive. They were socially abusive. They would embarrass me in front of others. That is the stuff that actually destroys the soul, because rape and being beaten by someone physically once or twice, that stuff only happens because the other stuff's being hit at the same time. Emotional, mental, psychological abuse, all of that's being hit. If you're being beaten up, beaten to a pulp physically by someone, or being raped, all that stuff's getting hit on too. So you really have to dig deeper than the things that happen to us just in the physical. We have to go into what has been happening to us in the mental, psychological realm and the emotional realm of our souls. And when you get to the base of that and you look at the patterns of how your parents behaved and or the people who took care of you as caregivers, and you see their dysfunction, and then you have to look at yourself and say, because of that, what did I become? That's the process he's taking me through, which is like, you are a good athlete, but you didn't have to be the best without flaw. And when you weren't, though, you were completely disappointed in yourself and unable to enjoy the whole process of what was taking place. You enjoy sports, but you were unable to do that when you would look at it from a perfectionist view and say that if I'd have done this properly, then I would have been received and appreciated and it would have been worthwhile. So there's all these dysfunctional behavioral patterns that were developed based on a worthlessness, based on a false identity that I had to become just to survive because of the harsh environment that I couldn't escape. And so these are things that he has been showing me. So when I say, let's talk about what's been found in this process, because that's where I began in these messages with others, was what has been found? Well, me. The real me is being found. And so when we talk about being buried alive, we're talking about resurrection. When he comes in and says, I want to rescue you, you've been buried alive. You've been buried in hell. You've been buried in a false identity. You've been buried in false beliefs about yourself and things that were legitimately having to take place as a child for you to survive. But as an adult, I'd like you to work with me to coax these parts of you out to come into the light. And it's going to be uncomfortable because they've been in hiding. They've been in darkness for a long time. And right now, he just showed me a picture of that little girl of me that was completely dark. Now I get it, right? That's all she's ever known. But there was light shining in her eyes. Her eyes were white. And as he embraced her, I saw the cracks. It was just like a coating was being cracked all over and light was starting to break forth. That's this process of rescuing us from the false identity. The false identity will fight God. The false identity will fight the truth. The false identity is false because it's estranged. Anything that's removed from it, estranged means removed, where there's distance. Anything that's estranged from him with a distance, he's not embracing. He's not holding us in that way. And if we're far from him, we're far from his love. We're far from being able to receive that. Well, this little girl has been hiding for so very long, this core part of me hiding away, who was not seen, was not heard, and was very angry and very hurt, and a lot of injustice taking place, injustice compared to like what God would have treated her like. And he's slowly but surely coaxing her to come out and speak these truthful things that happened to her, these experiences and all the feelings. And then he's wanting to talk to her about actually how precious she really is and how he really was there. And he promised her he would be there. She couldn't see it, but it did not mean he wasn't there. And it doesn't mean that he's not working all good together for her benefit now, because what he's saying to that part of me is, you've been through hell already. Now I'm ready to recover you from hell. Do you understand, Janet? I'm not going, there's no way, shape, or form that I'm going to be putting you through hell. You've already been in it. I actually want to come in and rescue you from hell and from all the minions that have been, torturing you there, and all the lies that they have, all that they're spewing. I want to rescue you from that. I want to dig you up from the grave and resurrect you. I want to resurrect the real you. And in that process, because you've been so familiar with that, you know how they sound and they what they do, and you know the brokenness of a soul now. You know the damage, and now I can use this all for good to bring you, me, and all of this rescuing to other people. And folks, I'm still in the process, obviously, but I see the beauty in the program here, because he told me if I don't, if he said, how can somebody go into hell with me and rescue souls if you've never been acquainted with hell? So any of you that have been acquainted with hell in life, you should be seeing that as a benefit now, as he'll rescue you, because what I'm seeing is, oh no, you're in a war and you were on the front lines in hell. So as soon as I walk you out of this and back into heaven, into my arms, into love, into wholeness, into being healed, you and I then are going to go with the others back into hell, in their hells, and we're going to rescue these souls in all these different ways. I see that as absolutely stunningly beautiful. It's why I say that I'm bored with anything else. I mean, that is a huge mission. That is an eternal fruits rewards mission, meaning that stuff don't burn. The only thing we'll take with us from this realm into everlasting life with him beyond this realm is everything you do with souls. Him, you, and others. That's it. So there's nothing that I find more eternally beneficial and rewarding and expensive and like priceless as there is with working with Abba to rescue souls. It's his main mission. So we can go on a whole bunch of missions with him. I'll teach whatever he wants me to teach. I'll bring forth and warn whatever he wants me to warn, and I'll work a miracle and a sign and wonder, but it's to recover souls. Everything I'll ever do with him is to recover souls. They are the most precious thing. I realize that with him. They are the most precious thing. The people, the souls, the recovery of souls, the healing, Abba meeting them and them meeting Abba. And if we think of ourselves, if you think of yourself as a soul, as just a soul, one big lump entity thing called a soul, you would be missing it. A soul is a construct of a whole bunch of compartments of who you are, facets of who you are, all grouped together, and that is a human soul. It's a unique combination of facets and components, and he wants to go in and rescue every facet or face and component of you, every part that's been estranged, so that you can be whole, and you can be whole in Christ, and Christ can be whole in you. And then we're going to go to other people, and we're going to go into hell, and we're going to rescue people with him by his lead. That is what this world is all about. Anything else, you've lost focus. Anything else is secondary to that. It's affiliated with the rescuing souls, but it's secondary to that. So if you go to a conference and the only thing you come out of it with is some more information about scripture, and you're not seeing how it relates to the saving of souls, you miss the whole point. If you go to a conference or a healing clinic or whatever it's supposed to be, and people are casting out demons, etc., and so on, but there's no discipling afterwards, there's no rescuing of the internal soul to connect them to Christ so that Christ can fill them and rescue them the rest of the way, then we're missing the whole point of the mission. The mission is the salvation of that soul. It's not the signs and miracles and wonders for the sake of them alone. Every sign, miracle, and wonder is for what? Is for the unbelievers. What does that mean? Listen, it can be somebody who professes Christ and it's still for them. You want to know why? Because there could be parts of their components that are lost and buried in hell, estranged from God, that needs rescuing. They need to be dug up. They need to be saved from being buried alive. So very much we can call ourselves affiliated with Christ and still be very lost inside in different areas. The signs, miracles, and wonders are for them too. I've told him, I said, and I hear him clearly. Like, he talks to me word for word when I'm settled down like I am lately. And I sit and listen to him speak to me. And I said, I can hear you word for word, and you're right here in this room. And in the spirit, I can see where you're sitting. I can see what your face looks like and all of that. But there's still a war going on inside this battle, inside my soul with all this stuff that needs to be healed. And I can hear you and I can see you, but the work still needs to be done. I still need to be saved from all these places inside, that is angry or distanced or bitter or wanting to know about injustice and all of that. And he has every intention to go in and rescue all those spaces of me. And I looked at him and said, I was very much lost. Like what we consider the lost. Let's go into the world and evangelize to the lost. That's me. I'm like, you're talking to me when you talk about salvation of the soul. You're talking to me, that there's things that you need to save in me still, and you have been. And he said, I'll continue to do that until they're all saved. That's an incredible God that we serve, folks. And so this is what he has been saying to me. This is what he's been doing. This is what he's been showing painstakingly, slowly, with massive detail and just an absolute mercy in it. This great, it's graciousness, actually. Yes, there's mercy, but it's this great, he has this graciousness about him to be able to sit and handle anything and do it with the biggest smile on his face, because it isn't what you're saying and what you're going through and what you have to present that all has to come out. It's the fact that you're doing it to his face. You're sitting with him and you're looking at him and you're talking to him. He said to me, I was reading this. Someone had put something online that said he has very few friends. It's very true. And this is what he means: not people who are acting friendly toward him and stuff like that. He means people that really see who he is, really see into the depths of who he is, and appreciate him for who he is in his internal attributes, not what he can hand them and do for them. It's why I'll always say, we need the miracles, signs, and wonders, because it's for the unbelievers. The unbelievers are like parts of me. I mean, man, I've been an unbeliever of your love and your goodness and your faithfulness, trapped with that little girl in there who's like, yeah, right. She needed rescue, saving. She was lost. And she holds the key to being able to receive your love properly, being able to see you in a proper light. She holds the power to that. She held it for all these years. So I'm watching him woo her. I'm watching him speak to, like, me, the other functional part of me, and him go in and speak to her and show her on a daily basis that there's nothing she can do that's going to make him not want to love her. There's nothing she can say that's going to make him step away. There's nothing that's going to separate his love from her. Nothing. But she holds the key on to whether or not we will ever receive it. So he's on a mission to prove to her who he is, slowly, methodically, and with detail, speaking to her about how big of an agenda he has in her life, how important she is to him. He's literally speaking to this part of me right now who is very childlike, and what I mean is stunted emotionally, mentally, socially, etc., especially with God. What he's saying to her is, you have no idea how important you are, little one. I've seen you in hell, and I'm going to show you that I can be trusted and that I have love for you and nothing but good intentions. And I promise you that everything you've been through, for one, it's over. Number two, we're going to use it for good, baby girl. We're going to go and we're going to help rescue other people who are trapped in these places. Wouldn't you like to sock it to Satan in that way? And that is what is wooing her over. And but at the same time, she's like, yeah, but you got to come through. You got to come through with what you said you're going to do. And she's yelled at him, many times, saying, listen, part of the problem of what wasn't taken care of my needs not being met, part of that was physical. My physical needs were not being met. In this life in different fashions. And he's like, absolutely. So he has every intention to come through for her, and I don't know the time frame of when God's going to do that and what we are going to go through before then, but I can tell you that I'm a different person today. You are listening to a different person today, whether you can recognize it or not. That because literally I'm a different person. I have parts of me who were not affiliated with you or God prior to a month ago, that are now participating in life with you, that are now speaking through this vessel, that are now being reintegrated back into me. I am a different person, and the amount of compassion, this little girl holds a lot of compassion for other people suffering. That's another thing she's been angry about, is she wants to see injustices turn into justice in this world. She wants to see people rescued and saved. She wants to see God as a knight in shining armor that's coming through for his people, like he said he was going to. She has deep compassion for that. And so she's being heard and seen. And he said to me, I'm not going to let her down. I'm not going to bring her this far to not come through. And she is doing everything. She's crying and shaking a lot during the day through me. And I've had to look at him and go, I'm sorry, it's right there. Here it is again. He's like, I know. He's like, I have to come through and do the things that I told you that I would. And Janet, we're so nigh upon that. And I don't know what that means. That's why I said I don't want to hear soon and whatnot anymore, because I've heard it a lot, and soon is such a generalized statement. What's soon to God? What's soon to me? What's soon to you? It's all different, right? But she's latching on to what he said. real hardcore right now, that he said, I will never not use what you've been through to help others. You're going to go on the front lines with me, and we're going to go right back into hell, and we're going to go up against Satan and up against death and up against estrangement itself, and we're going to rescue souls together. She's latching on to him for that because that makes it all worth it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I want you to understand that whatever you're going through, if you're recognizing void parts, parts that feel numb, parts that feel detached in you, um, that you can listen. I realized that stuff was there, but I didn't know what to do about it, when, how, whatever, and he took over. He'll take over when it's time, and he'll bring these things up. And I have a lot of people saying to me right now, I'm telling him if I have these things going on that I'm ready, and he'll let you know when you're ready. He will let you know. He'll bring these things up and he'll start talking to you about it. And for me, the biggest thing that I realized was that it was all coming up and I had no control over it. That's what you're not going to have to drum this stuff up. I mean, she was hiding, and it took one or two people that were listening to Abba saying that you have these parts of you that need rescue. That's all it took for them to have to say to me to go, really? So then I approached him about it and I said, that makes sense. What's up? What's going on? And then he started taking me through being able to see and hear all of the upset that was really going on inside of me, all of the being an opposition to him, an opponent against him. And I had to face all that, and it was very, very painful. But in the process is recovery, folks. In the process is recovery. And to me, that's one of the most beautiful things is this absolute recovery of what's going on with a soul. It's what means the most to me. It's not that you've been in hell. It's not that you've been estranged from him. It's not that you've been fighting him, arguing, yelling at him, not trusting him. None of that matters to me, and it doesn't matter to him. But actually saving you from that does. And I'm praying for you all because I know that if he is bringing me to this and through this and recovering me, it's all going to work together for good, and there will be a ministry for this. It's one thing to go in and kick a demon out. Okay, this is why they end up coming back, because we go in and we think deliverance is we succeeded today, we kicked them out, and then they went home. And then if the person doesn't get healed and recovered with their parts and step out of hell, they're still in hell inside. And so the demons just have to come back through that door. I mean, it's right there, they're right there still. Okay, so we really have to go into the discipleship part where we disciple them, which is recover them and teach them and support them, and God can actually go in and do the work that he has to do. I don't know the totality of what that looks like, but I do know that he's showing me a lot, and I'm learning. I'm in the process of being recovered, and I'm in the process of learning how he recovers the soul. Tell me if there's anything more important that you want to know. First, people are going to want to know that they're connected with God so that they can be with him forevermore. Yes, if you said yes to him, it's because he drew you. Nobody comes to the Father except through the Son, and nobody comes to the Son unless the Spirit draw them. So done deal. Okay, he's in your life. He wanted you to begin with, even if you haven't said yes to him yet. He wants you. Okay, done deal. The rest of it is recovering every part of you to know who he is and who you are truthfully, and to get you saved from hell. He wants to pull you out of hell, and you will go through great tribulation in this process, and you'll learn a lot of different ways in which you have lost touch with who you really are, and a lot of the ability to function properly has been locked away with these hurting, broken parts of us. So he's going in with all of his army fatigue clothing on, and he's on search and rescue with his sword drawn, and he's not going to stop until he recovers you. This is the good work he's finishing. Do we understand when it says the potter has us on the wheel and he's going to reform us? This is the work. It's going in and rescuing us from the devil and from hell. Death is literally just estrangement, and we're dying in every way that we're not near him and with him and receiving him. And that little girl has been buried alive for way too long in me. And so I love you all very much, but you should be getting prepared for God to resurrect you from the dead, because if you haven't been going through that process, you're going to, and you're going to watch the most beautiful love story ever play out in your life, which is somebody coming and rescuing you from being buried alive. As roller coastery as this ride is with God right now in my very life, it is the most beneficial process I've ever been through. It's the most beneficial thing I've ever been through. There's literally nothing more important than saving souls and saving them to the utmost degree. and he will do that. He will finish the good work in us. And I love you.